يلا عمر I'll see you man. Thank you.
Hello, hi, good evening, everyone. If I can get everyone's attention and ask the people at the back just to make your way and take some seats so you don't miss tonight's fireside debate. If you don't mind, if we can make some room for our speakers to be at the front. Our speakers, if you don't mind coming to the front. All right, well, I think the people at the back didn't hear me. Can everyone try to make their way over to the seats, please? So we don't disturb during the... Great. So tonight is actually the third consecutive year that we host one of our BDB Rowad Majlises during what we call Fantastic Week in partnership with the Bahrain Economic Development Board. Every year we theme it around some topic and we have very interesting speakers. But today is the first time that we actually have what we call a fireside debate. So we'll be having 4 VCs and 4 startups up here tonight. And excuse the pun, we'll be having quite a fiery debate tonight. But before we start all of this, I'd like to welcome David Parker, who's been a strong supporter of both our program, our initiatives, and leads the financial services at the Bahrain Economic Development Board.
Thank you, Rij. Good evening all. As Rij says, it's actually the third time that we've run the fireside chat. I seem to remember in the old days there was actually a fire. Didn't we almost set Chris Skinner up in flames one year? What's happened to the fire? It's coming up. Okay. So once again we got a real life fire. Once again, it's to coincide with the GCC Financial Forum that kicks off tomorrow. So we hope to see many of you at that as well. We got some amazing speakers flying in for that this year. Once again, it's part of Fantastic Bahrain Week, which actually kicked off last Thursday at the Ritz-Carlton with the great team at Bank ABC and AFS. And it's just gone from strength to strength since, really. We've been having events every morning, every afternoon, every night. Earlier today, we were all gathered at the Radisson Blu to talk about RegTech and what's going on in the RegTech space. Why is this so important? Why have we got, I think Arish says, 260 registered guests here this evening, thanks to the great work by Rowad and his team. Why is this important? Well, I always say fintech is important to Bahrain because of 4 key pillars that make up our ecosystem. The first, of course, and you'll hear from Yasmin in a few minutes, is the regulator, Central Bank of Bahrain, and the wonderful work that our regulator is doing to create a very innovation-friendly environment. And we heard a lot today at RegTech about the regulatory environment in Bahrain. We'll be hearing lots more on that over the next couple of days at the GCC Financial Forum. We have His Excellency the Governor on stage. I think we've got a whole session dedicated to innovation versus regulation as part of the GCC Financial Forum. So regulators are important. The second pillar, of course, are the incumbents, the banks, the insurance companies, the financial institutions that have always been there and continue to be there. And while some people like to use the word disruption and talk about the banks perhaps disappearing off the face of the earth over the next couple of years, I don't see them going anywhere quite so soon because they've got the licenses, they've got the distribution, they've got the critical mass. But the great thing is the banks are starting to innovate. The banks are starting to work with startups. The banks are starting to treat startups not as disruptors but as enablers that can actually help them to embrace the digital agenda in their own right. So that's quite exciting. So you've got the banks, you've got the incumbents, and think about a chair. Think about that chair that you sat on there with 4 legs. Yeah? Remove one leg, the other 3 legs, they work perfectly, but the chair falls over. So all of these are like, to our ecosystem, they're like 4 legs on a chair. The banks, the regulators. The other 2, of course, are the startups, the innovators, the enablers, the people that are developing new digital transformation products, platforms, services, solutions, and of course the investors. You can't develop a robust fintech ecosystem without access to finance. So what's amazing about tonight and what makes me really excited about tonight is 2 of those 4 pillars we're going to be focusing on over the course of the evening. As Arija said, we're going to have the startups, and we're going to have the investors, and we're going to have some fun debate between the 2 in terms of what drives fintech ecosystem, not just here in Bahrain, of course, but across the Gulf, across the entire region. Now, before I finish, once I get a microphone in my hands, I can't stop. We've got some really exciting announcements that I absolutely want to share with you this evening, because there's so many exciting things going on at Bahrain. First of all, I'm only going to mention this briefly, because I don't want to steal Yasmin's thunder, but I'm really excited about the crypto assets regulation that's been announced this week. First in the Gulf. So congratulations to the CBB on that, and more in a minute, perhaps from Yasmin. We remember this time last year. Who was at the fireside chat last year? Anybody remember who Arij interviewed at the fireside chat last year? Peter, yeah, Peter Tavner of Beehive. Beehive are coming to Bahrain. Beehive are launching their crowdfunding platform in Bahrain. This is official as of this week. Benefits announced today the new national eKYC program. This is something that we're really excited about. It's going to be really, really important for you, those of you operating within the payments space. There seems to be new announcements coming off the conveyor belt, quite frankly, one day after another. The visitors we're now welcoming to Bahrain. Was anybody at the Ritz last week to meet Sophia the robot? Yeah? Sophia the robot came to Bahrain. Steve Wozniak is in Bahrain. There's a round of applause to Steve Wozniak. The legend, co-founder of Apple, is in Bahrain, and he'll be on stage tomorrow at the Four Seasons. So there's so many exciting things going on at the moment. So many reasons, I think, for us all to feel optimistic, both from a financial services perspective, from a tech perspective, but about this wonderful kingdom and its position, its potential, to once again return to its rightful place as the leading financial hub in the Gulf. So that's why I'm excited about Fantastic Week. Without further ado, I just want to introduce our third and final speaker before we get the debate underway. She is part of the Women in Fintech initiative. You'll be hearing more about that from Dalal a little bit later this evening. She's one of the leading lights, I think, in the ecosystem, fintech ecosystem here in Bahrain. She's a wonderful person. She's a regulator that gets innovation. And not all regulators get innovation, but this one does. Yasmin, Central Bank of Bahrain, over to you.
Hi, and good evening to everyone. I'd like to start by thanking BDB and Rowad for, first of all, putting together this event and for inviting me today. I promise I'm gonna try to make this very short and sweet in order to give you ample time for the discussions and to engage in networking later on. I'm sure most of you may have heard the number of initiatives that the Central Bank of Bahrain has introduced over the past 2 years and focused on fintech. And that just proves our commitment towards enabling financial institutions to work alongside fintech companies and startups to develop a more efficient financial services sector. Our primary role as a regulator is to act as an enabler, to put in place an agile regulatory foundation that will foster innovation without hindering financial stability and the integrity of our financial market. Back in mid-2017, we have launched our regulatory sandbox, and we were the first regulator in the region to launch an onshore regulatory sandbox. It has marked a milestone for us. We have seen the sandbox mature at a very steady pace. Today, we have 29 companies that have been authorized to test out their innovative financial solutions in the sandbox, and we have 2 companies that have successfully graduated from the sandbox. One of the companies is considered as the first company regionally to be licensed to provide open banking services as a third-party provider, Abdullah Al-Muayyad. The other company, which has also graduated today, actually, is currently in the process of applying for the relevant license. Our role is also to work alongside relevant stakeholders, such as, but not limited to, the EDB, Bahrain Fintech Bay, banks, startups, as well as other private and public institutions, to build a thriving ecosystem through the concept of Team Bahrain, which most of you may have heard of. The sandbox has given us, as a regulator, the ability to interact more with the startups, which has also aided us as regulators to develop more regulations that will enable fostering innovation within financial services sector. For example, we've announced back in 2017 our crowdfunding regulations, which enhances financial inclusion. Followed by that, we've issued our open banking regulations. Again, open banking, Bahrain is considered as the first country within the whole MENA region to introduce open banking regulations. Last Thursday, we've issued our crypto asset services regulations, which again is, we're considered a first mover in this area. We've issued draft regulations on robo-advisory services, which will be finalized very soon, and we will continue to develop more regulations. The key message I want to try to get across tonight is that we at the CBB consider fintech, consider innovation within the financial services sector as an utmost priority. It is embedded within our strategy, and we will provide all the support necessary to enable transforming Bahrain as a digital innovative economy. We're also very supportive of events like tonight because we value startups and private enterprises and the value that they may add to our fintech journey in Bahrain. I wish you all an insightful and enjoyable event. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Yasmin. I'm going to take back my board. Yeah, you don't need it. Oh, sorry. Great, thank you. Thank you, David, and thank you, Yasmin, for providing, I think, a lot of the people here who are here for the first time. And I tend to always do this, and then my team remind me that I don't ever introduce myself. So I'm going to do this now. My name is Arij, and I'm from the Bahrain Development Bank. I lead the Development Services Division, so everything to do with the entrepreneur support platform that we offer and the Rowad program, which you see a lot of the branding here tonight. And more recently, I lead the fund management for the Fund of Funds, which I'm sure you're going to be hearing a lot about if you're here during throughout this week. So talking about that, tonight we're going to be having what we are trying to sort of help support through the Al Waha Fund platform is providing access to funding to startups. And tonight we're going to be focusing on fintech, startups and fintech VCs and their entire journey. So I'm going to ask our panelists to come. So I want the startups to be on this side. So if, where are they? There's Bram, there's Fahed, Shadi, and where's Abbas? There we go. And then on the other side, I need the VCs. Hans from Finch Capital, Walid from MEVP, Saab from Phoenician Funds, and Mohammed Al-Hajri from KISP. You know, David and Yasmin spoke a lot about how important this week has been. But we didn't talk about, you know, how special today is actually. Not only is it the start of what we call the Fantastic Week, so we had Reg Tech earlier today, we had, even yesterday we had a session. But can anyone tell me why today is so special? Anyone? I hear something over there. Someone say something? It is. It actually is the Kuwait National Day. We have two people on stage, both Mohammed and Fahed. Thank you. Thank you both, Fahad and Mohammed, for coming. I know it's the day off, and there's a lot of celebrations that happen in Kuwait during this time, so we thank you so much. All of these people on stage sacrifice a lot between their home, family, to do what they do best, which is work in supporting startups or actually work on building their startups. So for the audience itself, I want to basically tell you what's going to happen tonight. So I'm going to be saying a statement out loud, and this statement is going to be debated. So either they're going to agree with my statement or not. So I'll start on one side. So I'm going to leave my phone here. We're going to start with the startups, and then I'm going to say a statement. And then these startups, so the fire's here, David, see? And so the startups will have 15 seconds. So can we just do an example of the 15-second timer so the audience knows how it is? The startups will have 15 seconds to decide amongst them who's actually going to answer that question. So you'll see the 15 seconds. And then after this is over, they'll then a 1-minute timer is going to go up, whereby the person they've chosen is going to defend or contradict that statement to the other side. And then after that's over, we're going to go to the other side and tell them, okay, guys, what do you think about what, for example, Fahad or whoever said? And again, the 15 seconds timer will go on, and then they'll decide, and it will go on back and forth. So this is the first time this happens. In case anything goes wrong, it's okay. So are we ready? Startups? Over there. Who's there? Is that Lemis or Delal over there? Lemis? Okay, Lemis, are you ready? Okay, great. All right. So the first statement to the startups. Startups face issues accessing funding when they are trying to scale in the region. True or false?
We're good for now. So we say false. We say that startups in the region don't have a hurdle in terms of getting funding. On the contrary, I think the region has evolved into one that provides sufficient funding to startups with purpose, startups with the capacity and ability to execute, and startups who are resourceful at tapping into these funding pools. That is our opinion. If you take a look at across the region, every government has instituted SME-based funding pools. Every government has provided accelerators and ecosystems to enhance it. I think Bahrain and the EDB and BDB are a case in point. And across the region, we have dedicated venture investors that are focused on funding startups. So we believe that doesn't exist.
Thank you, Fahad. All right, VCs, what do you think of what Fahad said? All right, your timer's going to go. Well, Fahad was pretty, we didn't think about if you guys finished before the time's over. All right, 15 seconds, decide who's going to answer.
So, shall I go?
So Waleed's going to answer? Okay.
There was a Kuwait national.
All right, minute, please.
So definitely 2019 is much better than 2009. I don't think anyone can argue with that statement. So to your point, it's a much better environment than it was 10 years ago, at least, when we started MEVP. But every data point shows that this is a region that is severely underfunded in terms of venture capital money. So no matter what your aspirations are, if you want to take a company from 1 to 10 and then from 10 to 1,000, we have way less money than what we need to scale. So I hope we'll see this gap filled in the coming 10 years.
Okay, thanks, Waleed. So we have two opposing viewpoints here. Fahad thinks we're doing a good job. Waleed says it's better than what it used to be, but we still have some time to get there. At the end of our panel, between both of them, we're going to ask the audience what they think as well. All right, VCs, now it's your turn. The primary motivation for a VC to invest in fintech is financial return. True or false? 15 seconds, please. Okay, 1 minute.
Yeah, so of course, as a VC, your primary goal is to deliver great returns to your LPs, to your investors in your fund. But that's not the only aim. It's also to deliver strategic value to your LPs. So if we make an investment in a company, it will also look how relevant the solution is for our network, our LPs. That could be financial institutions in the region, but also outside the region. So we look at how big is the problem the fintech want to solve, and is that problem really relevant for the financial institutions we're working with. So it's not only about great returns, it's also about creating strategic value, and in that respect also helping to build the ecosystem at the end.
Great, thank you, Hans. Okay, guys on the other side. So, you know, you've all had VC investment. Do you actually agree that they just are really trying to build value, or they're just actually always on your case to get their money back? 15 seconds, we already know who's going to decide. Okay, so let's have the 1 minute on the clock.
Yeah, I can definitely answer that because our company is bootstrapped. We don't have VC funding yet, and I think the current stage we are, that's actually really good because I think we couldn't have gone faster with VC money to really find the solution for the problem we found, to build the first version, to get the first 20, 30 clients in. But indeed, the problem for us right now is how do you really scale? We have a SaaS solution. We sell that in Northwest Europe, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, Germany, UK. But the problem is the market is too small to say, okay, we cover it all. And we need VCs to really help us go to new markets. And that's what Hans just said. It's about the financial return for the LPs of the fund. That's, of course, tier one. But you also need to help your assets do a great job. And I can only say, Hans, I can confirm your thinking. Yeah.
Great, thank you. You guys are very friendly with each other. Yeah, yeah.
Just getting started.
All right, so now to the startups again. We have the regulator here somewhere. She's sitting. Regulatory frameworks are the #1 most important element to help support a fast-evolving sector of fintech within an ecosystem. True or false?
You want to take it?
This.
All right, 1 minute.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially when the fintech is working in similar to what Risk Plus does. We do B2B, our clients are banks, so we need to make sure that whatever we're proposing to banks is actually accepted by the regulator. And what could help companies like us, fintechs offering and scaling up in the region is if we can achieve some kind of a standardized regulation across the region, or sometimes or some kind of cooperation between regulators, where once you get the approval of one regulator, you can easily identify what are the things that you have to adapt to in order to scale into another country.
Just to complement, since we have under 15 seconds, so I totally agree. I think regulators play a very important role. If you think about regulation in financial services, one of the most regulated activities in the world, and without regulators actively supporting, fintechs can't do much.
Thank you. All right, on to the other side. Do we know who's going to speak? Or we need the 15 seconds? Yeah, okay. All right, 1 minute.
Is it on? Okay, so yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, all the startups in fintech are heavily regulated since they're dealing with people's money, right? Most of them are either in payments or in lending, and regulations, if not handled well, if not supportive to startups, then they would be a big hurdle and a big obstacle for startups to launch and move forward. We've seen a lot of initiatives, for example, in Bahrain, like the Sandbox unit, or the fintech unit that has launched the sandbox to really provide the startups with a safe environment to test their technologies and launch, and that is very helpful. So yes, I definitely agree with that statement.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can I rebut?
You want to say something?
Well, we're all embracing, but I think we want to just put in a bit of energy towards it, the other way of thinking.
Yeah.
So very quickly, we all embrace regulators, and I think they're doing a fantastic job. But where we're suffering from today is that the fact the region is not homogeneous from a regulatory landscape perspective. And so it becomes very different to scale across the region. So if you think about Europe, if you think about MiFID II, there's an ability to work across the region. We do not have that. And so we would hope and urge regulators to try to embrace some form of cooperation amongst each other.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, at least now we're trying to get a little bit of the controversy up here. But it's interesting to hear that at the end of the day, whether you're on the VC side or on the startup side, you feel like the regulator is important for you to sort of like at least guide you and sort of like make a sort of like a fine dotted line for you guys to follow, or you guys can actually build it together. All right, so we're on to the VCs again. So my statement to you is domestic capital tends to be present at the early stages. Therefore, funding from foreign investors are very important for companies that are entering their expansion phase. True or false? 15 seconds. Okay, 1 minute.
It's definitely a true statement, and it's much talked about in every conference and every event that the underfunding in the later stages it's naturally exists in a nascent ecosystem. But nonetheless, we see some we see unnatural things also happening. Likewise, the VCs don't tend to go into the investment cycle internationally. We don't see from Series A to E, for example, maybe 1-2 rounds and you see an exit. So don't expect to copy everything that happens in other parts of the world in this region. Same thing goes, what happens in the US not necessarily happens in China or India. So we should embrace what we have, and I think it's evolving nicely.
Great, thank you, Mohammed. On to the other side. We have 15 seconds to decide. I want to hear from Abbas. The question is, domestic capital is quite available in your early stage, and you'd only need foreign capital or investors when you try to expand. True or false?
No, I don't think it's true. I think it's false.
1 minute, please. Yeah.
So I think it's false. You don't need external capital when you want to expand only. You can take it early stage as well. There are companies in the region who's done that in Dubai. External capital brings in the globalization factor, brings in the ability to learn from the West or the East. It gives you the ability to also open new markets. So I believe we should be able to, if we provide an innovative, technologically innovative platforms or solutions, the West will come and fund us. The problem I think is that we tend to copy technology and innovation is still backwards. So why would they come to here when you have Silicon Valley or other places?
Interesting. I wonder what the audience thinks. Does anyone agree or disagree with that? We have someone over here. Do we have a mic that we can give? Trying to give you guys a break. I mean, for Yasmin, I think it's interesting because we had, sorry? Yeah, he's over here. Yeah, we're just trying to get him a mic, sorry. We didn't think of it. We didn't think to have a mic on. Yasmin, did you hear all of these tips they gave you up here? The regulator. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Khalil Al-Awadi. I have been in a banker for almost 30 years, but now I'm retired and enjoying my life and have my own startup as well. Just coming back to Abbas, you know, startups is like a heart with pumping veins. And when you say that you don't need a globalization or a new funding from international, maybe I disagree, because you cannot just depend on one pump pumping your heart. You always have a backside, and who can, you know, carry. Wasn't me. Yeah, so basically, I think you should always have a back vein where you can pump some more if you still believe in your startup going forward.
Thank you, Khalil. I actually said we do need them.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. Are we ready for the next round? Oh, we're on this side, actually, yes. All right, guys. Passing a regulatory sandbox makes you ready to operate 100% independently in the market as a fintech. True or false? Build your case to prove either. So 15 seconds to choose. All right, we can start the 1 minute decided. Okay.
Entering a sandbox, a regulatory sandbox in the region, first of all, it's available. So once you enter it, and if you graduate successfully, it definitely gives you independence, 100%. Bahrain, you just said about open banking, you guys have done it. If you do open banking with the regulatory on lending, and make fintechs independent, and they can compete and will compete and collaborate with the incumbent. The idea is more collaboration, of course, but it happens that they will be independent, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks, Abbas. Yasmin.
We always need to have, you know, baby steps in a world where things are evolving at the speed of light, right? So what's wrong with opening up things directly and just giving licenses to those who can hold those licenses?
Okay, wait. I'm gonna. Hans wants to say one thing, and then we'll let the regulators speak.
Sorry. So I think a sandbox only makes sense if you have also the passport in your license, what you were referring before, right? So the domestic market in Bahrain is relatively small. If you look to the success sandboxes in Europe, it's the passporting of the license from, let's say, the Netherlands to Germany, from Germany to Poland to the Czech Republic, for example. That makes a sandbox relevant. If there's no, let's say, exchange of that license, so if you, for example, would graduate in Bahrain and you can use the same license in Abu Dhabi, for example.
Region, such as money pooling, right? Why aren't we able to pool one bank account and do the AML and KYC ourselves on behalf of our clients, like Stripe does, or all these? So we have an extremely different regulatory setup, and I'm not sure the regulator are evils into that online to offline conversion, and we stick to the license. So I'd like to hear the regulators answer
I'm sorry,
on that.
I think in Bahrain we have attacked that revolution. First of all, consumer protection, to ensure that there is financial stability, to ensure maturity level when it comes to innovation and fintech. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges that is stopping us now to avail having passporting rights.
Okay, thanks, Yasmin. I see a lot of other hands coming up. Okay, I'll let Abdullah say a comment, and then can we wait till after the next question, because then you're throwing me off my game afterwards.
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Yasmin was saying, I think whatever the VCs are saying, put it in context in terms of the Bahrain situation in the region. What you said doesn't really apply, because if you're talking about fintechs historically, fintechs historically have come before the regulation, and regulation came after them. And ideally, what you had in the West, I mean, we talked about it earlier today, but what you had in more developed places, like account pooling and account aggregating, you needed to integrate to banks. That is illegal in this part of the world. So you can't integrate to banks until now we have open banking, which allows you to integrate to banks. So historically, that was not allowed. And now we see Bahrain embracing it. And in that perspective, a sandbox is necessary. Because going up to a bank today, I don't know if you've done business with banks, but going to a bank and saying, I'm an unlicensed entity, give me your APIs, I'd like to integrate to you. I think the guys, the startups would probably know how banks would react to that.
Even if you're
but ideally, it gives you an infrastructure that, yes, you're validated, you've tested it, and from there on, you can take it to the next level.
Okay, thanks. All right, we're going to leave the audience to comment in a few minutes. Thank you for that interaction. So I mean, I think that we have some kind of different views, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of Bahrain because I'm going to try to be neutral right now on stage. But we definitely do have a lot of advancements that are here, and I hope that during this week, everybody that is visiting will actually learn about that, and then maybe VCs will move your fintechs over here to test what Yasmin's saying and what Abdullah was just saying.
Would love to.
Yeah, definitely. All right, next question, on to the VCs. The main challenge when reviewing a startup investment opportunity is the fact that they have weak founders. True or false? Build your case to prove either. 15 seconds to decide who's going to answer. I feel like I'm in the way, right? All right, do we know who? Okay, all right, 1 minute, please.
Yeah, so of course, if you look at all the criteria we're using as VCs, team is probably 50% of the decision you make if you invest in a company or not. But besides that, we also look at what I mentioned before, the problem. How big is the problem they want to solve? Sometimes we see great teams working on a great product, but the problem they're solving is just simply too small. We also look at their go-to-market, which is very important for us, specifically if you look to fintech. Mostly a lot of cash is required to build a sustainable and valuable business. So the entry barriers we definitely take a look at. We also look at where we strongly believe in more, let's say, B2B2C business models. So how strong are the relationships they're having with, let's say, financial institutions or other strategic partners. And in general, if the team is weak, you can always fix that, as long as you have a couple strong founders, but you can also make hires to strong people.
Okay, thanks. Over to you guys. You think that every time you want to get investment, someone will tell you, oh, but you're a weak founder, or do people actually say that to you guys? All right, 1 minute, please.
Yeah, short comment. Yeah, I think it's like when you talk to VCs and you talk about Series A in Holland, that's around 5 million euros. Seed is around 2.5. That when you get to that stage, in my case, SaaS, you need to have around 100K of MRR, recurring revenue. You need to have a really great engineering team to have built that first product. So I think it's sort of contradictory to say that, okay, then the founding team is weak, because personally I think if you get to that stage, you might maybe need some professionalism with respect to your operations, but really finding a tough solution, building the first version, getting the first 10 clients in, is something that is basically done by the founding team. Because if you look at technology is really about doing things in a better way. It's the innovation business, and I don't think that anyone else than the founding team truly understands what they're solving, how to build it, and how to execute it.
I agree, actually. I agree with you guys, yeah. Thank you. All right.
No?
On to the next. When you guys are actually choosing your investors, a startup, my statement to you is, a startup must perform their own due diligence before choosing investors. True or false? Okay. All right, Shadi's going to take this. 1 minute, please.
That's actually true, because what you look an investor is way beyond just getting the funding. You look at someone would be partnering with your vision, who understands the problem you're solving, and who can actually help you achieve your plan. So it's not only getting the funding and just work on your own, but you need really a strategic partner across the whole path that would understand, because as you go through the plan, sometimes things might change along the way. Sometimes you need follow-up funding. You need an investor that can understand what you're doing, who's flexible to really change the whole plan and accept that you're changing the way you're solving the issue that you've set at the beginning.
Want to say something?
I would
Fahad?
compliment very
Yeah.
quickly to say you definitely need to due diligence your investors, and you need to even categorize them. And what does each category provide you? Whether it's grant money from government, whether that's other strategic investors or VCs. So that's very important to understand.
Okay, over to the other side. Okay, I want to hear from Mohammed also. So onto this because we had a discussion on this, so maybe you guys can split it in time. All right, so 1 minute onto the clock. Tell me, do you guys think that they should waste their time due diligencing you guys?
Yeah, first of all, I hope Shadi was talking about us as good investors because we invested in him. So yeah, definitely. I mean, investors, especially VCs, have a very strong power over the founders. Let's face it, venture capitals have terms in their deals with startups, and if it's the wrong investor, then they could really kill the startup, right? If they make the wrong decisions. So definitely, each founder should choose his investor very carefully because they're going in for the long run.
Great. Mohammed, you guys have an interesting portfolio. So, I mean, I know you do due diligence, but how often do you feel the investors are actually due diligencing you guys?
One of the guys on the panel, we're doing due diligence on him right now.
So we're going to try to guess who.
We engage a lot with the founders. I mean, 90% with the founder. If we like the founder, we believe in him. No matter if we start with the idea, he will succeed. It doesn't matter. The idea is something that comes and goes. With weak people, it will never fly.
Yeah, but what if you guys are not the right investor?
We might not be, but
what would you say? Do they need to due diligence you, or is it only the other way?
Of course he has, because it's his fault if he chose us and we become not the right partner.
All right. Anyone in the audience that can comment on that, on the due diligencing the investors? Any comments? No? Oh, over there at the back, we have a comment.
Hello, I am Shantini. I'm a fintech company founder. I completely agree. We have to find out who's the investor. Investor is not only the person who's giving the money. They have to be morally supportive to us, strategic planning in each and every step. So I definitely feel we have to see who's the investor, because this is not only the idea, the person who's joining with us is going to scale up the idea to the next level. So I think we have to do the due diligence.
Thank you. All right.
Just a small comment. Let's not be like more royal than the royal family. When things happen, we can say philosophical things at the heat of the moment, but in reality, whoever writes the first term sheet, you will go with him. So let's be realistic. Speed is also something. If the VC cannot execute, the founder should walk away. This is the beginning of it. You shouldn't go with him.
So what do you guys think? You think it's just about who writes you the first check?
Muhammad, I was talking to Muhammad about it the other day. Because it's very...
It's you that they're due diligencing.
No. So anyway, I think definitely we should do due diligence. It goes without saying. You don't want the money, you want the strategical fit. It's marriage. It's a marriage. You don't want just because you like them or because you need their money. If you can bootstrap, you should bootstrap, as Muhammad said, and others there said, and the audience. It's not about the money. If it's all about the money, you have the money from different sources. You need to understand that this is a long-term investment. Hans said it. Fintech is not e-commerce. Has regulation, has security, has open banking. You need millions of dollars to actually get tractions in fintech. You said you need bootstrapping. It doesn't come easy. And for us, at least most of us, I think, I'm talking about myself, we bootstrap until we find the right investor. It just doesn't make any sense otherwise.
Great, thank you. All right, on to the other side. We keep hearing different trends. So VCs. Investing in fintech is the hottest trend for VC investing in MENA at the moment. True or false? 15 seconds to decide who will answer. All right. Do we know who's going to answer? All right. Hamed's going to answer. 1 minute, please.
Okay, since I'm part of a banking group, I'd rather have this question. Whoever succeeds in fintech innovation in this region, I mean, blindly, anyone should invest in him. It's very difficult, it's very tough. I personally tried to do it a few years ago, just in Kuwait, to create the second debt network in Kuwait, and didn't work. These markets are heavily regulated. Innovation is not easy, and we are struggling every month to find a fintech company that we can adopt in the bank or invest in. It's not the hottest, it's the hardest, and innovation doesn't come quite often in this field.
Thank you, Mohammed. Over to you guys. So this is all, I mean, all of you guys are fintech. So investing in fintech is the hottest trend for VC investing in MENA. True or false? 15 seconds to decide who will take it. All right, 1 minute on the clock, please.
So the question is about, is it the highest trend in investing? So I think obviously the data stands for itself. I think there has been a lot of interest in investing in fintech, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone here to say rightly so, but depends on where. I think if you think about fintech, fundamentally you have to think about the relative size of the market in comparison to other venture opportunities. So when you think about payments, when you think about asset management, when you think about P2P lending, all of these industries are trillions in size in comparison to other industries, right? So fundamentally, I think there should be interest for, but the key issue is, are all the ingredients there? Are the startups there? Are the regulators there? And is there a clear path to invest in successful, sustainable businesses?
Well, that's good news, I think, for everyone who's supporting fintech here today, because both the investors agree that this is the thing to invest in, and we have a lot of interest of people wanting to start this up. All right, on to the next. How are you guys doing? Do you think anyone's winning on one side? They're being too friendly to each other, I think, right? We need a little bit more aggression. Or, I mean, and we also have to try to find who's actually getting due diligence. I think that's the person who's trying to calm everybody on the other side. All right, on to the startups. All right, this is gonna be a good one, and you guys better be honest, especially the one who's getting due diligence right now. VCs are known as sharks and can be unfriendly to founders. But for fintech startups, they are the best partners. True or false? 15 seconds to decide. All right. Are you ready? Okay, 1 minute on the clock.
So are VCs sharks? I think they agree on that better than us, but are they the best ones for us? Yes, I mean, technically, if a VC is a technical partner who understands finance, who understands technology, then yes. There are VCs who don't understand fintech, and there are VCs you shouldn't touch because they don't understand fintech. But they will give you money. I don't think you should go with them. But yes, I believe if a VC is a financial incubator of some sort and a technology enabler of some sort, understands both, you should. They are our best friends, I think. Yes. Go ahead. You disagree? Go ahead.
Oh, go. I want to hear the opposite.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think they're a very relevant party, but, you know, in our circumstance, we actually raised capital from strategics, not from VCs, and that worked for us tremendously well because they were banks, they were willing to adopt our products, they were investment managers, they were allowing to give us product. So sometimes there are other relevant parties that can support startups build sustainable business models, and they don't necessarily have to be VCs, with all due respect to them.
All right, so sometimes for fintech, strategics are probably better than VCs. Interesting. All right, on to the other side. You guys are known to be sharks and can be unfriendly to founders, but you might be the best partner for fintech. Who's going to take this one? 15 seconds on the clock.
I think sharks are
what,
lovely
you're going to take it? Okay, so we can go on to the 1 minute.
No, I can answer that. I very much dislike these type of categorization because they're first of all not true and they're very subjective. And a quick answer would be, well, if VCs are sharks, then you better learn how to swim with sharks, right? But that's not the reality of things. The reality is VC money requires high returns, very high returns. And not every company out there can deliver those high returns. So if you come with a very high expectation or a non-interesting deals, then we'll have to make it work for us. So I agree with the statement that not every investor should be a VC investor. This is a very true statement. So deliver high returns and we'll be very friendly, like sharks.
Does anyone else want to add here?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to add something. Shark VCs, in my opinion, are short-sighted VCs. To be honest, you're going into a long-term, long-haul partnership. If you're acting as a shark, if you're going in with your founders on bad terms, then that's not going to be helpful to anyone, right? You're probably going to lose the money. The founder's going to probably lose time. If you're acting as a shark, everyone loses. So I strongly disagree with that.
Okay. Interesting. I'm trying to decide which one I agree with the most. All right, on to the VC side. Team over idea when it comes to top reasons to invest into startups. True or false? 15 seconds on the clock. Who's going to take it? Hans? Okay. All right, 1 minute. Nemis might kill me tonight because I keep confusing her.
Yes, definitely team. Because if you have, let's say, a great team on a, let's say, but the potential is not significant, not big enough, you can still make good returns if you like us a Series A investor. Later stage is different. But if you're a Series A investor, a great team on a relatively small market, you can still make great returns. The other way around, if you have a lousy team on a big opportunity, it will never work. So team is for us very important. And then within the team, we look not only at, let's say, the tech capabilities or execution power, but also is this guy or is this team experienced in navigating through the landscape of financial institutions? So do they have the sales power on board and to sell the product? So the team is for us, what I said before, 50% of the decision-making process.
Okay, thanks, Hans. I'm going to try to challenge this one a little bit. I mean, when we look at accelerators and all these different types of programs, you usually need to have a great idea, and you have to come in with the idea, and and then sometimes you'll meet a founder in these programs, or you'll come together. So how does that work if the team is so important or the founders are so important? Then when do you get the idea? So it confuses me a little bit about the system. And then sometimes you might have one and you might have the other. So why don't we have programs that just focus on good founders and then connect them to ideas? Why is it that most successful programs we hear about is that people go in with an idea?
May I add something? A question, something like?
You'll have a chance. You'll have a chance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We didn't come to you guys yet. Okay.
I think if you study, the question is a wrong question, because what you need to study in successful companies is the path of the founding team. So rarely have I seen people who convert from one industry to the internet succeed on their first venture. They probably succeed on their third or fourth venture. Every great company out there has been built by someone who really understands very well their industry, inside out. So I guess this is what we're trying to say. If you don't have that very deep, strong expertise, chances are you're not going to succeed. You can have a very bad idea, but if you're very strong in your industry and then you iterate and change and get, the idea changes. It's execution, and it's really, really boils down to knowledge. I mean, you can't go and change the tech world if you're not a technologist. It's the same thing. You might be the best doctor in the world, but that doesn't mean you're a great lawyer.
Great. You guys agree?
Yeah. I'd like to second that. I mean, at the early stage, the entrepreneurs are just operating based on hypotheses and assumptions, right? And it's their ability to validate these assumptions, but not only to validate them, but also to go in, validate them, and then find out if these assumptions are wrong, and then come up with new assumptions and new hypotheses. and change that, right? So it's about iterating that idea that they have, especially at the early stage. So definitely a strong team will be able to do that. A weak team with a great idea might not be able to do that, right?
Hamad.
It's a good mix, I think. But team, I mean, I wouldn't say the team. I would say the founders. Honestly, team, you can hire team and you can have a great team post your funding, but the founder is the basis. The one who sacrificed probably for most of our startups, sacrificed a good job, good career path. He's not stupid to leave it out. In one of the startups that I invested in, he was a candidate for a director at Citibank, and he left it and started his own company. The other one was at McKinsey. I mean, most of them had a great career path, but they said, no, I'm not going to do it. I want to have my own thing. And they have done it. So I would like to contradict with everyone. It's not a team, it's the founders.
When I said team, I meant founders, especially at the early stage, yeah.
Okay.
Can I?
All right, so now we're going to go to the startup side.
I just
Team over idea.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, okay.
And then you can comment when I say this.
No, I just want to say that, especially in the fintech.
Okay, time on the clock. Yeah.
It's a lot of rules. Okay, just saying that especially in the fintech world, I think the team is very important, because as they were saying, sometimes you come with an idea, and talking about all the regulations, you might face a lot of obstacles along the way, and then you need really a team that understands the industry inside out, and that have the creative thinking to be able to work around those obstacles and get to the idea to really the end game.
Ram, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think that's totally true, but it's also 50%, because if I look at my company, we're serving like several dozens of funds in Europe. They say it's like nowadays really easy to start a business, right? But at the same time, it's never ever been so hard, because if you can do it, anyone else can do it. The competition is so steep. So what I see is like everything needs to be perfect. Your pricing, your customer success, your sales. We haven't talked about sales yet, because we're like more early stage now. And I think like the founding team doesn't have these capabilities. So it's more than just the founders, in my view. If you really want to succeed and build your distribution channels and scale, it's far more than just deep knowledge on the domain you're trying to solve a problem.
Well, I don't know. So right now I'm trying to think. You know, I had a few number of good ideas. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. You guys are discouraging me now, because if I have some good ideas, but I don't have the expertise, I shouldn't start them.
You will inspire people to join you. Yeah.
Yeah, you sure?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find people to believe in my idea.
Yeah.
And then these guys are going to have to get convinced that I'm a good founder.
Yeah.
We all have great ideas, Arish.
I do, I really do. So now you're basically telling me if I have a great idea, but I'm not like an engineer, I'm not going to be able to do it.
That's your idea.
Yeah.
You want to quit?
You never know, right? If I'm gonna, you just told me somebody had a great, career path and had a great idea and left. True, right? So
I'm sure.
I'm gonna come back to you guys and ask you how. Yeah. No, but it is inspiring. But I'm just saying, and sometimes we always say everybody has a great idea, but it's about how we execute it. So I need to have a good team to execute it, like how we did tonight, right? Because it's all because of my team, right? Yeah. All right, on to the other side now. Startups. Industry leaders and policymakers are important for innovation and creating growth opportunities. True or false? 15 seconds to decide. I'm going to take this. Sorry. Industry leaders and policymakers are important for innovation and creating growth opportunities. True or false? Okay, Abbas is going to take it. 1 minute on the clock.
So industry leaders are important for innovation. Industry leaders outside the entrepreneurial fact, I don't think they're great for innovation. Maybe some are. I mean, you could probably count them on your fingers, the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies who actually innovated into tech when the top 10 were in oil or utilities or industry, and then you find them now in tech. I don't think industry leaders, I'm just thinking out loud, are the catalyst for innovation. I think the catalyst of innovation lies outside the industry. And that's why they're called disruptive or innovators. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, as always. So I think innovation comes from people who have been not served well by the industry.
Policymakers?
Policymakers could be. I haven't seen them yet, but yeah, they could be.
Oh, no. False.
No.
All right, on to the other side, guys. Are we ready? Industry leaders and policymakers are important for innovation and creating growth opportunities. True or false? 15 seconds to decide who will take this. Waleed smiling.
I think we have no clue what to answer you.
No, all right, 1 minute on the clock.
It goes back to the idea of regulation and in the innovation. This is a bit of an oxymoron, right? Because it's a difficult relationship. Regulate what is supposed to be innovative. I think, I don't have an answer to it, but I think it's a tricky one.
Hans?
Industry leaders, yeah, I think that there could be just, very inspiring to look at them, especially what's happening outside the region. If you look to, for example, payments, what's happening in Southeast Asia around, guys like Alipay, for example, Tencent, the guys who are coming into Southeast Asia, into the Indonesian market, that can be very inspiring in that respect, but also can be considered as a kind of threat. So it gives you a kind of, outlook how market is developing in a more mature country, in a more larger market. That's one. Secondly, policymakers we discussed before. Personally, I think they're more facilitating rather than enabling.
Okay. All right. So we have an agreement that you have a comment?
May I add something?
Yeah.
If industry leaders are not really driving innovation, what's happening a bit in the West, and hopefully what will happen in the region here, is that fintechs will do the innovation, and then to basically not circumvent, but like be compliant with the regulation, they would link to industry leaders who are already established, have the check from the regulator, and that's how industry leaders can really help with the innovation and push innovation by collaborating with fintechs in the market.
So sort of like a mentors or
yeah, so
supporters.
they would be basically the back end for the fintechs would be really focusing more on the customer
experience. So they're going to come work for the fintechs.
No, it's a collaboration. Not anyone working for the other.
Go ahead.
I would add on, I would say that industry leaders and policymakers absolutely have a role in innovation. Maybe they're not the reason for innovation necessarily, but they play an instrumental role in allowing innovation to thrive because they influence the ecosystem around startups and fintechs. Take a look at most banks across the region here. They've developed VC-type partnership models in terms of supporting, investing into startups, right? So these are industry leaders now reaching out and trying to enable that innovation. So I think they play a very big role, and they need to play a bigger role.
You guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the statement says policy makers are important, right?
Industry leaders and
policymakers are important, right? And I think it goes back to our initial point talking about the regulators and how important they are in terms of enabling fintechs to go into market, right? So they definitely are important, especially policymakers. I would like to focus on that point.
Okay. All right, on to the next question. We're almost there, guys. All right, so VCs. Events such as today are key for startups to access funding. True or false? 15 seconds.
I think it's very true. I've met some of the most amazing entrepreneurs in events like that. So you gotta show up, and that's how it happens.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think you increase your opportunity to meet whether it's partners, whether it's venture capital investors, whether it's angel investors. So definitely being there, being exposed to a potential upside is always good.
Ahmed?
I think it breaks the barrier. Maybe there is a visible barrier from approaching the VCs. These events have great settings, but not necessarily. Anna, personally, we have not been successful in investing from people that come to these events. I would.
I
would rather stop here, but The good ones, we find them. They don't find us.
Hans, what do you think? What happens over in Europe?
So it is not a way to do deal sourcing, to be honest, but it is good, you know, to meet up with like-minded people, to share ideas, to meet other VCs. We talk about co-investment opportunities, for example. So if we invest in local markets, we always partner up with local VCs. It's great to meet up with companies, you know. So it's just good to meet up and share ideas. But sourcing deals via these type of events, sorry.
So guys, just in case...
Can I tell you a story?
Sure.
So last week I was at a conference. At the end of a panel, a team came and saw me. We had a nice chat. I was interested in what they were saying. They sent me their data. We looked at it. Insane numbers. 130, 150% month-on-month revenue growth over the past year or so. We're sending a term sheet this week.
That's the exception to the rule, Mohammed?
That happened.
At all the events, and all you do is go to events, right?
The message is come to every event that we host. All right, on to the other side. Events such as today are key for you guys to access funding. 15 seconds to decide who.
Decide.
Okay, Shadi's going to take it. 1 minute on the clock, yeah.
Okay. So definitely it's a great opportunity to get out there, build a network, talk to VCs, to maybe other strategic investors. It's not the only way to get funding, but it's a very good opportunity to also to get feedback on your idea. Not always about funding, but also getting feedback on the idea, trying to discuss, get opportunity to really also hear what's happening in the market and what other startups are doing in the market. You might also get into partnerships, as I was saying, not only talking to VCs and getting funding.
Okay, good. All right, down to our last two questions, over to the VC side. Back to the topic of funding. Access to funding is the only challenge faced by startups in the region. True or false? 15 seconds to decide. Okay, 1 minute on the clock.
Yeah, no, definitely not true. I mean, it is a challenge sometimes in certain geographies, in certain industries, but there are a lot of other challenges that startups face today, and we acknowledge that. Sometimes the regulations are not helpful or conducive. Sometimes the market is not ready. Sometimes the users are not ready. Sometimes the startup itself is not tackling it the right way. So I strongly disagree with that statement, is that there are a lot of other challenges that startups and founders are facing today, especially in the region.
Okay, thank you. On to the other side. Access, yeah, go ahead. Okay.
And we'll do half-half.
1 minute on the clock, please. Okay.
So we'll do half-half, right? Okay. So definitely not. I agree. It's a false statement. Money is not the only problem. I can list like 10. Geopolitics, passportable regulation, non-passportable regulation, execution, talent, technology, and the list goes on. So there's as everywhere else, but here there are more special problems to the region actually. Yeah.
I guess the startup panel has all raised money, so fundamentally we don't have an issue, but I'm just going to play devil's advocate for the hell of it. So I would say that the ecosystem in the region here still has more room to grow from a funding perspective. If you look at developed markets like Europe and the US, the ability for startups to more easily and accessibly reach capital is there, and it's fundamentally not here in the region. So I think ecosystems, development banks need to continuously explore what are best ways and best manners in order to get funding across.
That means we're important industry leaders and policymakers. See, it's back to that point, yes. All right, on to the next question. Character is as important as execution when making an investment into a startup. This question is to the VCs, but because I mixed it up, see, that's one of the things you guys didn't notice. We're going to start with the startups first. Who's going to answer? 15 seconds on the clock. I think Bram wants to answer it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you need to do your time. You have a lot of struggles, a lot of problems, people running away, clients trying to sue you. I mean, you just need to be really focused, and also find the right balance by being transparent about your what you're afraid for towards your team versus not showing that. You know, like you need to be very transparent on your financial results, on whether you're already cash flow positive, but at the same time you really feel that your key engineer is walking away, or the deal doesn't go through that you want to raise. Like, you cannot always share with the team. So I think character is very important to act as a leader. Yeah. As a founding team. Yeah.
Anyone else want to add? You guys still have 20 seconds.
Yeah, character is 100% everything, I think. To persevere, to have grit, is everything in this business. You can't do it without having grit, and you can't do it without knowing when and how to lead and to be led.
So you're trying to say that you could have a great idea, you could have all the expertise, but if you have a bad character, that's just as good as nothing. This is getting very complicated. On to the other side. When you guys are looking to make investments, character is as important as execution. True or false?
Yeah, true. So character attracts great people. So based on character, you build a great team. That's one. Secondly, if you look to fintech, we all agree that it's a tough world, right? And you have to deal with different elements, different forces, so to speak. I think where we see people and teams and companies dying is actually in their sales process. That they go out, they're totally convinced that they've built an amazing product, they've done tons of tests, A/B testing, etc., and they fail in selling the product. And I think there where you need to show character and try to move on and do your second, third, fourth sale till you really sold your product. So character is super important.
Can I add something? I actually misunderstood your question, because when you said character and execution, I thought I wasn't thinking about the people, I was thinking about the product. So for a consumer internet play to be a magnificent play, I agree that the product has to have character. And that can be measured by specific things, the love for the brand, the love for the product, the retention rates. And when you think about the greatest fintech plays from PayPal to today, you know, you can only think of how amazing the product that these guys and these companies have built. So
interesting, yeah.
I thought about product.
You wanted to add anything? Okay, good. All right, so we're down to our final question. This time I'm going to do it right. This is a fintech question, so I'm going to stay on this side. The basic barriers to fintechs gaining in the financial sector come down to the government regulation, because they are too complex and not keeping to the pace of the industry changes. This one's just for Yasmin. True or false? Hamed's going to take this. 1 minute on the clock.
False. I would like to take the discussion to another dimension, and specifically for these startups. What we lack is champions in the institutions. Champions are the people in these institutions who are willing to adopt these startups into their institutions. The lack of them and the people who believe in these startups is delaying the adoption of these startups into their organizations. We understand that banks and banking system is difficult. There is a lot of rules in place. At the end of the day, it's people's money. But banks are not the enemies of progress and adoption. But mostly, the banks do not have the manpower enough to adopt these ideas. But once you find someone, hold him with whatever you have.
So are you a champion in KFH?
No, but we have my own champion in my team.
Okay, good. Anyone want to add before I go ask them? Okay, on to the other side. Is government regulation slowing you guys down from actually progressing? True or false?
So I'll take it. Maybe share, guys, huh? Okay. I'm waiting for the
Sorry,
clock.
1 minute on the clock.
So obviously, being that we operate in the financial services industry, we are beholden by the regulations there, and fundamentally when you have regulations, they do hold you back. We do not, unfortunately, operate in a free-for-all industry. So fundamentally, yes, there is a holding back. That being said, I think what regulators have come up with over the last, let's call it 5-10 years, around sandboxes, around consultation papers and what have you, do support. What we've seen in terms of cooperation with banks and regulators do support. But yes, government regulation complexity is very difficult. When we started our journey about 3-5 years ago, there weren't these marvelous sandboxes all around. So we had to read the CB booklet, which is about 300 pages, and had to understand it in and out throughout. And that goes for Kuwait, Saudi, Emirat, ila akhiri. So yes, unfortunately, government regulation is very complex, and it's improving. But it needs to improve.
Do you think this is just unique to the region, or is this globally? Maybe Bram, how is it in Europe? Is government slowing you down, regulation?
We had this PSD2 directive. I think you heard about it. The Netherlands was the last country in Europe to apply locally. I don't think it's government slowing down. No, I think they're really trying to help with this new directive, create a lot of innovation in Europe. I think it took longer than expected, but I think they with this whole new directive, they are trying, and they will create a lot of innovation and opportunity for businesses. For example, for us, we can now directly read the cash flows of our funds in their bank API. It took longer than expected because of local legislation, and there was not a fixed format, not a particular standard now. But I don't think they are against us. It's more the traditional banks that try to slow it down than the government.
So it's the banks, the enemy. In agreement to what Mohammed was saying. All right. Last question before I leave. I ask my fellow panelists to give you some final words. To the startups, sustainable innovation, a little bit philosophical now, creates competitive innovation. 15 seconds to decide. You'll do that, Abbas. 1 minute on the clock.
So sustainable innovation leads to innovation. Competitive innovation, absolutely. I think fintech is the industry where sustainability is required to really succeed in the long term. The tech that we produce has to be scalable component, has to be able to do multiple things that are extremely difficult, so they should be sustainable. Once you do them, they become a competitive advantage because they become a moat, they become a hurdle for others to actually break into. So unlike other tech industries, whereby you can basically build an e-commerce site with a little bit of innovation, in fintech, sustainability is everything. If you build a product or if you license a product even, that is not sustainable because that's not customizable with the evolution. So absolutely, yes.
Thanks, Abbas. On to this side. Sustainable innovation creates competitive innovation. 1 minute on the clock.
Actually, I can give you an example from China. So around the year 2010, 11, you remember Groupon, right? And there was many Groupon clones in China. Do you know how many clones actually there were copying the website pixel by pixel in China around that time? Say a number.
I don't know. You guys help me out on this. 1,000?
Okay, 5,000.
I was close.
Okay, so there's only one company that survived out of those 5,000, and it's a company called Meituan, which is the 4th largest tech company in the world today. So if China did not have this hyper-competitive landscape, it would not be on top of the world today in terms of technology, innovation, and they've all done it, starting by e-commerce and copying. So absolutely nothing wrong in that. This is the path.
Anyone else want to add? So it's okay if people copy you. It's about how whoever's going to be sustainable that actually. So you guys need to help identify and provide them funding so they get sustained.
Look, look at China, right? So there's a lot of learning in just that country that happened over the past 10 years. WeChat processes, I don't know how many million of payments per minute. Millions. I mean, it became the largest payment company, and it's a fintech company, and it's a, chat service.
Okay, great. Well, thank you to both. Fahad wants to say something.
Well, I would agree and compliment. I would say, I think what's both unnerving and exciting is that the technology landscape continues to evolve. And so when you're starting off as copying successful models, in as quick as 2-3 months, you need to evolve with your region, and you need to figure out how to continuously, sustainably innovate. And so I think it's not about how you start, it's about how you continuously grow and stay relevant between your stakeholders.
Okay, thank you. Well, before we sort of close off and maybe allow a few questions, because I really want Dalal to also come up on stage after you guys are done. But I wanted to invite each one of our VCs and then our startups to sort of just give some final words to the audience, either about investing in the region, accessing funding into the region, or just any final words that can help some of our entrepreneurs in the audience, some of the investors, and our guests from overseas that have come to join the Fantastic Week. Should we start with Hans?
Yeah, sure. So if you look to fintech in 2018, 110 billion was globally invested in fintech. That was actually the double of what was invested in 2017. In 2018, only 1% was invested in the Middle East. And the coming year is expected that will grow to 300 million. So we expect a massive growth in this part of the world. It's a very tough market. It's not e-commerce, but we are very excited about the whole landscape, about the ecosystem. As David mentioned, the 4 pillars. It's critical. Those are the success drivers of fintech. That's what we saw in other markets as well. And yeah, we are very hopeful about this market, and we definitely see, as a VC, a massive opportunity, and happy to support great companies and also to work with other VCs, because as a VC, we're also very collaborative.
Thank you, Hans. Walid?
Some final remarks. One of the defining moments in my career was 5 years ago when we pretty much had our first exit, and we handed out a $10 million check to the founder of a company that we exited. And that was probably one of the coolest moments in my life, because that was the first time actually that I saw this working end to end. $10 million is a lot of money, right? But it's a start compared to what we can do. Today, in the Arab world, we have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where we're seeing an offline to online migration. Everything is moving online. We spoke about e-commerce. Actually, e-commerce is very difficult, but e-commerce today is still 1% of retail. So if there is any time in the history of the modern Arab world to make serious wealth in an industry where you still have a chance to make it without relying too much on what your family gave you, what the government has handed to you in a contract or it's that industry. That is the only industry where you have real mobility and creation of wealth, and we're at the very beginning of it, and it's a very exciting time to be in. So now's the time.
Thank you, Ali. Fab?
All right, I just want to go back to the question. I think the first question that you mentioned about are we interested in investing in fintech? And was it for financial returns? I want to say that in addition to financial returns, I think that the impact of fintech for the region is going to be massive. It is going to change people's lives, right? You have over 200 million unbanked people in the region. They don't have access to financial institutions. You have over $200 billion in SME lending gap, right? These SMEs need funding and they don't have that. I think fintech can change that. And in addition to the returns that our startups will hopefully bring, I think the impact is just inspiring in terms of changing the landscape and changing people's lives in this region.
Thank you, Saab. Mohammed?
Yes, I think fintech or general startups filled a real gap that every corporation had. Many corporations, for example, tried to deliver food themselves. All of them failed. Startups won. Same goes with fintech. Banks can build the platform, but not necessarily a perfect or good product. Entrepreneurs and startups are always needed. We have seen one of the best startups in Bahrain specifically. We are launching, inshallah, this year, one of the largest accelerators in Bahrain. We truly believe in what's happening right now. And being founder friendly, for example, less than a week ago, we have the bank announced the launch of Scriptlino, a Bahrain startup, in all 100+ branches in Kuwait as a first stage. Second stage, Turkey, Bahrain, Malaysia, you name it. I think what's happening in Bahrain ticks all the boxes that we require, and we expect a lot of great things in the coming years, inshallah.
Thank you, Mohammed. On to the other side. Let me start with Abbas and end with Fahad. Abbas, final remarks.
Thank you, Arij. Startup ecosystem in MENA is definitely on the right track. Where it was 3-4 years ago, it has immensely, dramatically, in the positive manner changed. Today, collaboration is a key word between industries that are 100-year-old with fintechs. Money is there. We need talent. Talent comes from open borders and visas and residency. But I think we're much better shape, and we're lucky to be here. And tech is the new oil, as one of the panelists said. I think, Waleed, it is the new oil. It's the only industry where you can create wealth with a little bit of perseverance and less money. Yeah.
Thank you. Shadi.
Yeah, I would like to answer basically why we're set it up in the MENA. I think we're from here, we really understand the problems, and we're the best positioned people to really solve these problems. And beyond just succeeding in the venture that we're doing as a startup, I believe, as Saab was saying, we have an indirect benefit if we succeed as a startup, the indirect benefit that goes to the society out of the problem that we're solving today, whether it's in fintech or any other area where startups are trying to really pinpoint problems and trying to solve them.
Thank you. Bram?
Yeah, I just want to thank you very much that as a European I was invited to be here. And I just want to say that what I see in Holland happening a lot is we have a very small home market. So, right, you really talk about the region here. In Holland we have the Benelux, and what a lot of fintech companies are doing there is because your home market is less than 30-40 million, you really start early in your strategy to have a really international look. Don't only look at the region, but also come to Europe if you have a great product. If you don't have found your fit yet, and you still need to do 5-6 pivots, don't come, because it's too expensive to do that over 5-6 different countries or regions. But the moment you find it, and you don't want to give competition too much of a head start, come to Europe, and you're all welcome. If I need to do introduction to any of the other fellow startups, then I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Bram. Fahad.
I would maybe channel this to the entrepreneurs, and I would basically recommend that well, first of all, emphasize that, frankly, we live in a day and age that it has never been as welcome and as possible as it is for entrepreneurs to incorporate, to test, and to and succeed. If you think about the different elements of the ecosystems, whether that's regulatory that help you set up. Today, companies can incorporate in weeks where it took years before. If you think about funding, whether it was from grants by governments and SME funding and things of that nature, or VCs or specialized investors, today there's a plethora of those. And whether it's from industry players, banks who are willing to work with entrepreneurs, today that's all possible. And only 5 years ago, that didn't exist, any one of it. So I think it's very important for people to take calculated risk and actively get involved in innovation and entrepreneurship. And if you think about the relative comparison of this region to Europe and the US, we're still at a very young age, and there's a lot for us to do. And you guys play a very, very big role. So thank you, I think, from all of us in terms of this event and bringing us together.
Oh, thank you so much, Vahed. Thank you to all. I think I did promise Rain, because they wanted to make a comment. You still want to make a comment? Okay. Before I let Dalal come on stage, because she has some important things to say, and I really want her to share some of the developments that have been on her side. But maybe if I could sort of just sum up a little bit before I leave can we have, Sarah, will you allow me 2 comments from the audience? Because they're still going to be here. We're not going to let them run away. We're going to still have reception and refreshments, so we'll do that. But if I could just sum up, I think some main points here is that I think the region is changing, developing fast. I think Yasmin earlier mentioned a lot of developments when it comes to the sandbox. I think we do have some work to do, like anything, because nothing finishes just at the end. There's no sort of finish line when it comes to innovation and technology. But if I would like to do my sort of like utopian dream, is that, we do have quite a few number of people that represent different markets in the region and even globally. We have people from Europe, but maybe this is sort of like a representation. We talk about Team Bahrain, because we work all together in Bahrain to work this, but why don't we think of actually working as a team across borders to actually create that kind of a thing. And then I think just having you all on stage here, hearing from all your experiences, has been great to realize that sometimes it just takes something like this to bring everybody together to maybe create that kind of partnership and opportunity. So thank you so much for taking your time. If we can just allow 2 questions, please, go ahead. Just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yahya Badawi. I'm with a company called Rain, and we're actually the second company that Yasmin referenced earlier, exiting the sandbox today. So big day for us, and thank you. We started this journey early in 2017 with the CBB, and at the time the sandbox was still pending implementation. And we've been in this journey since the beginning. And we have to say that we were mind blown by how cooperative and open they've been as a regulator. Yes, at times things were hard. We are working on something very difficult. We're a crypto asset exchange, by the way. So talking to a regulator in the Middle East about crypto assets is not the easiest thing to do. And we've tried the other regulators before, and we were not as welcome as we were here. So I would have to say that the sandbox gave us a chance and gave the CBB a chance in order to understand what are the risks and the benefits that are associated with such an idea. And throughout this time, we found that they were willing to listen. They were very open. They were very knowledgeable about the subject matter themselves. But it was a journey that we've truly enjoyed. And last Thursday, the final form of the regulation came out. We're very excited about calling Bahrain our home and growing this company further. So I would implore anyone that has an idea that is not yet regulated, come to Bahrain. You'll definitely find a very positive and welcoming environment. Thank you.
All right, at the front. If you could just introduce yourself, please, too.
Sure. I'm Steve Kirsch. I'm CEO of Token. I've had done 6 startups. 2 of them were billion-dollar companies, and so I thought you all did a fantastic job tonight. But I just wanted to add a couple of things that may be helpful for the entrepreneurs. That in my experience, over the 6 startups, there are 2 things that are super important. One's product market fit. And if you have product market fit, that can cover for a lot of mistakes, anything else, right? But if you've got product market fit where the customers are coming to you and sales increase and you're doing nothing, no sort of incremental work to get that, that's really key. And the second thing that at all was luck. So you can be doing everything perfectly. You can have, and yet if you don't have luck, so you have the perfect product, you've timed it right, and sometimes just that luck factor, that is the difference between success and failure.
Thank you so much. I think I'm gonna wait for that luck thing. I'm gonna bank on the luck for me to become where you're sitting there and creating those companies. So I'm not gonna need the team or the knowledge. I'm gonna go for the luck. But the mic's telling. Okay, the mic's telling me that I need to get off stage. But thank you so much to our panelists. They're still going to be here. We're going to have refreshments right after Dalal makes her little presentation and enjoy the music. So please, thank you. And if I can invite Dalal Bouhidji, Senior Manager at the Financial Services at Bahrain Economic Development Board. I'm just going to make you part of my team, right?
Thanks, Rach. I won't keep you up a bit later than you're all up here. I know it's a bit cold. Plus, we have an early start tomorrow. Who's going to the Euromoney GCC Financial Forum? Great. The reason I'm here is because we just initiated a very special initiative called the Women in Fintech Bahrain Initiative. This was launched in August of last year. And yes, good, Tariq is taking videos because we just started our social media platforms. So please do follow us on all our social media platforms on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. This is not, an organization or initiative to say, women power, but it's more of showcasing the involvement of women in Bahrain. We have very special ladies. A lot of them are here today, including Arij, including Yasmin, that took part in growing the whole fintech ecosystem. And that just shows how diverse Bahrain is, how welcoming it is. And we want to continue to showcase the involvement of women and promote it and further encourage other women locally, internationally, and regionally to come to Bahrain, set up their fintech, not only companies, but also take part in the whole fintech ecosystem. So please do watch this space. Follow us on social media because you'll get to see a lot of exciting things coming out of this. I'm also on panel on the 27th at the GCC Financial Forum with a bunch of special ladies from across the GCC, from UAE and Saudi Arabia. So do make sure that you come and listen to us. And if you have any ideas and suggestions, please do come and speak to any of us from the initiative. So thank you and enjoy your evening.
Panelists, can I just ask you to just stand on stage? We're just going to take a picture. Just one last thing before I jump.
Together, all of us, yeah?
live music, wherever the live music is, and the refreshments, and come attack the VCs.